one of my favorite guests, my mother's favorite guest, Gerald Celente, joining us from up there in Kingston, New York, where he is helping kick off the Second American Revolution. I saw your press release that's up at the Trends Journal. Tell us about that. Tell us what you're doing. You're putting your money where your mouth is and your blood, sweat, and tears, Gerald.
Yeah, I'm buying into America, the real America, not what it's become. And I bought a building on the most historic corner in the United States, the only place on each corner where there's a pre-revolutionary stone house. And Kingston, you know, was one of the first capital of New York State. And the British actually burnt the place down. And a lot of the revolution happened here. The Constitution was brought through here. So I believe if this is where the first American Revolution also began, why not start the second one? But this one won't be of bullets and armies. It'll be of mind and heart. And again, this is the real America, not the America that they've stolen from us. And so what I'm doing is my campaign is stay home, don't vote. People are going to vote for a lesser of two evils. What self-respecting person would vote or have anything to do with an evil? Lesser, greater, it's evil. And look what's going on, Alex. You know, I've been around for a long time. I began my career, by the way. I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County when I out of graduate school. I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate. And you know the list of contributors to the Trends Journal. I mean, it's Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Reagan. I mean, we're guys that have been around and know the story. Anybody, to me, that votes in this election is going to be an accessory to the crime because it's two crime families that are running the show. The Republicans and the Democrats, Gambino's, Bananos, you can call it anything you want. Now, let's put this in perspective. I said, you know, oh, by the way, I also taught at St. John's University American Politics and Campaign Technology back in 1972. It was one of the first courses on how to run campaigns. So I know a little bit about this. Never, never in modern history has there been such a downbeat election as the 2012. Who cares? There's no excitement in the air. People really could care less about who's running. Go back to 2008, it was a whole different atmosphere.
It's because they now know it's a fraud. Correct me if I'm wrong. The illusion has never been more revealed. Congress has a 9% approval rating. People know they're bought and paid for by the same mega banks. Is that what's happening?
You got it. You nailed it. No one cares. It's the presidential reality show, and people are tuning out. So my election campaign, if you will, is stay home, don't vote. If 40% or less of the people don't go to the polls, we could call this an illegitimate election because, after all, we have illegitimate candidates representing us, whether it's Obama or Romney. And here's another thing. Go back in time. Do you know what Obama's approval rating is today? It's about 46%, 43, 46. Do you know what, at the same time during his re-election campaign, Dwight D. Eisenhower's was? 72%. And Dwight D. Eisenhower wasn't on the campaign trail. He was back in the White House. You name me any CEO, whether it's yourself, me, anybody that runs a business, could you imagine being away from your business all of the time as the nation is going to crap? It's the biggest business in the country, and this clown's out there shaking hands, rallying support, and raising money. He's never in the White House.
And going on all these different TV shows, like The View and the rest of it, hamming it up with people. The truth is they're total puppets, and Jesse Ventura's new book, Democrats and Republicans, breaks it down for you and I and most people. We're like, yeah, we already know that. Tell us something we don't know. But for the general public, there's still 30, 40, 50%, depending on how you look at it, that do buy in to the structure. What do you expect for them to do as things just continue to slide into this depression and if Mitt Romney gets in, if he doesn't change things? Or do you think it's going to be Obama?
Well, we believe it's going to be Obama. We've said this back in October in 2011. We came out with our forecast. I mean, anything could happen, but we see it as Obama again. I mean, Romney, I mean, this guy's stiff. He's colorless. He's humorless. And what is he going to get him on? He's not going to get him on health care because there's Romney care. He doesn't have an economic plan. His only economic plan is don't tax the very rich. Yeah, I mean, no, he's not going to, we don't see him going to anywhere. And if he does get in, what's he going to do? More of the same. It's a two-headed, one-party system. As I've said before, it's like electing somebody as the president of a country club. They're arguing. Should we expand the tennis courts or build another swimming pool? I mean, these guys are totally out of touch with the people. So it's not going to make any difference who gets in. But here's where we see it going. First of all, Obama is going to blame what's going on in Europe as the problems for the United States. The prostitutes will continue to buy it. Number two, it's war talk. Oh, they love war talk. I loved Hillary Clinton the other day coming out against Syria for shooting down a Turkish plane that went into its territory. And that's the way it was first reported. How brazen the act is. What an inhumanitarian regime the Assad government has. Hey, Hillary, you want to talk about brazen and inhumane? How about starting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, killing millions of people? Does that sound inhumane and brazen?
How about Libya?
How about Libya? Hey, Hillary, how about your husband? You remember the Wag the Dog episodes when he was caught with Monica Lewinsky. I didn't have sex with that woman. Bombs away over Baghdad. You forgot that one?
Or bombing the aspirin factory with cruise missiles whenever some bad news came out. Or bombing the capital of Serbia with DU and tripling birth defects. What's amazing is they're using al-Qaeda against Libya. They're using al-Qaeda now against Syria. And if your Cessna gets off track and goes over a military base, they shoot you down. They admit they're sending jets in from Turkey. Turkey's a NATO ally. They've said they're getting ready to attack them. They shoot it down, and Turkey's like, if your troops get anywhere near your own border, we're going to attack you. They're clearly trying to start a war. I'll never forget, it came out in the White House and Downing Street memos that Tony Blair and Bush met, and they said, let's paint up U.S. aircraft like UN aircraft and have them fly real low and try to get Saddam to shoot them down so we have a pretext. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing here. And then they show one dead girl, don't even prove that Assad did it, and say, we've got to invade now. I mean, you're right. It's so ridiculous.
And that's how they'll get the people's mind off the economic problems, particularly in Europe. And so that's where we see it going. And again, you know, look at the facts. The Gulf of Tonkin, the psychopaths made that one up. Never happened. Hey, how about those weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda? Hey, it didn't happen, but we went to war, stayed there for what, 8 or 9 years, killed 1 million people, ruined the lives of how many of our soldiers, and spent $1 trillion. So what? Hey, take it easy. And now they're going to go in, it looks like, into Syria. Here's a fact. When Obama was down in the polls, go back to April of 2011, when Donald Trump was on his case, all of a sudden, we wake up on a Monday morning, they got Osama bin Laden. Obama's poll numbers skyrocketed up to 60% plus. It's the oldest game in the book, and they keep playing it over and over again, and the gullible people buy it. So what I'm saying is, enough. We know this game, we've seen it before, and that's why I'm helping to launch with you and others the Second American Revolution. We have to change the system.
You're right. Gerald, I want to get into that, but first I want to get into your prognosis on Europe, because I read the Trends Journal. I interviewed Dr. Roberts, who's also part of your team. You guys have been absolutely spot on what's happening. So have people like Webster Tarpley, Bob Chapman, God bless his and the rest his soul, have been so on target. And it's really amazing how on target we've been. But the guys actually found that article I just mentioned. Here it is, London Guardian. We'll put it on screen up there so I can give people the headline. Confidential memo reveals U.S. plan to provoke an invasion of Iraq, Saturday, June 20th, 2009. And when this came out, leaked by British intelligence, the White House said, yeah, it's true. We're going to arrest whoever released it. And it was a plan. So this shows the UN was part of the scam. Bush told Blair the U.S. had drawn up a provocative plan to fly a U-2 reconnaissance aircraft painted in UN colors over Iraq with fighter cover. Bush said that if Saddam fired at the planes through an area that was illegal for them to fly, this would put the Iraq leader in breach of UN resolutions. And then they'd have the UN claim it was their aircraft as well. But don't worry, we'll just kill a U.S. pilot. Now, again, it turns out they didn't even need that. They just went in anyways. Turns out when they were telling Saddam, you're allowed to leave, they had jets ready to kill him if he tried to leave. And people say, oh, well, he's a bad guy. The CIA put him in power for folks that don't know their history books. Here is an example, and I see this Turkey situation where they're flying their jets, F-16s, their pilots on suicide missions into their country to get killed. They admit they flew into their country. Here's another false flag. And instead of the head of NATO getting in trouble or the president of Turkey getting in trouble, no, the system treats us like we're low-grade morons and shovels this at us. I want your take on that. But again, Al-Qaeda on record, we did a whole report on it earlier in the show tonight, has been used to overthrow Libya and Syria, complete with Al-Qaeda uniforms and flags. And then I'm told I've got to have the TSA abuse my wife and children, or Al-Qaeda is going to jump out like a jack-in-the-box from there, you know, behind the curtains over there, and is going to kill us all. I mean, how dumb do they think we are?
Well, they're plenty dumb. I mean, look at the people that are going to vote for Obama and Romney, and they're going to believe in them. So they know how stupid so many people are. And let's go back to the Al-Qaeda. Let's go back a little more. Remember that wonderful Mujahideen? You remember the one that Jimmy Carter started paying off to fight the Russians in Afghanistan and that Reagan accelerated? Oh, you remember them. What's his name? Bin Laden's group. They do it all the time. When are people going to grow up and understand that you have a bunch of psychopaths, sociopaths, and losers that are destroying our lives? And why hasn't, you put up that article from The Guardian, let's go back to the bigger issue. How come there have been no war crime tribunals for Bush, for Cheney? Oh, Condoleezza Rice is back on the news. She was a big hit at the latest Romney event. Yeah, that shows you how bad it is when someone like her gets press. How about Blair? Where are the war crime tribunals? You or I, like you mentioned, a Cessna goes out of their little zone, bam, you knock them down. Any one of us break the rules a little bit. Boy, the strong arm of the law really shoves it up to us. But hey, start a war for fake reasons, come up with the evidence how they were planning it. Hey, let's let bygones be bygones. Don't you know who Bush's daddy was? Don't you know that every one of these people, Alex, are better than you, better than me, and better than anyone listening? Except, of course, you trolls out there, CIA hacks, and a bunch of military losers that are waging wars that you can't win that are listening in. Other than them, they're all better than we are.
Speaking of that, there are literally hundreds of articles now where the Pentagon admits they're waging domestic psyops. They have accounts with YouTube, Google, everywhere, with fake posters. We've tracked the IPs on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, where the same military IP address is posing as 8 people having conversations in live time. This is computers. They now have computers. They admit they do, countering us. I mean, this is just outrageous. It's more than outrageous, it's deadly. Let's look at what's going on here. Look how many of our men and women's lives have been lost and ruined. All the families that have been touched.
I'm going down the street the other day and I see a young man with his leg, one leg, lost it in Iraq. And then nobody, oh, so what? So what? It was a useless war. Just like you said, sending these guys on suicide missions in Turkey, they don't care how many lives they expend to get off on their sociopathic trips. These are sick people, and they're ruining our lives. They're destroying this country. So let's look what's going on. There's no salvation in Europe. They can't save it. Tomorrow's a big day. Mario Monti, you know, the technocrat over there that was supposed to save the day in Italy that came in for Berlusconi. Last week, he said, if they don't fix it, everything's lost. Well, Mario three-card Monti, we're going to prove that he was wrong because it's going to continue to go on. Tomorrow's a big, this Thursday is a big day. There's going to be a lot going on in the Eurozone. They have to come up with another scheme to pull this thing out. What are they going to do? I don't know. Gold prices, by the way, are going down. People are saying they're going down because we're in a deflationary cycle. Nah, has nothing to do with that. Gold prices should be going up because the euro is worthless, the dollar is worthless, the yuan, the yen, the real, they're all worthless. They're dumping money in to pump the system up. So I'm in gold long term. I don't believe this is a bubble. This is very different from when it collapsed in 1980. I was trading gold back then. Whole different world situation.
Hey, I'm doing the same thing because everywhere they're devaluing currencies but creating a real depression so that the inflation doesn't get too bad visibly. But long term, either they come out with a new currency and redenominate gold, or gold and silver are going straight up. I mean, that is a mathematical certainty. We've already seen gold go down $500, $600 a few years ago. Then it shot back to heights even greater. But I'm not in gold and silver to even make a profit. It's an emergency backup because I know these paper dollars are going the way of used toilet paper.
You got it. And also, you said something very important. You're not in gold and silver to make a profit. You're in there for security and safe haven. You're in there for the long haul, and for me, my golden years, which are getting closer all the time. So I'm not in it for a profit. What do I do profit? My business is my profit. My Trends Journal is my profit. I don't invest gambling, what they call investing. I don't gamble to make a profit. I put my money where my mind and heart is, not speculating. So in going back to what's going on in Europe, Alex, there's no way out. They're not going to come out with a euro bond. The Germans are not going to let it happen where they put all the bonds in one package and come up with an even price. The best they're going to come up with is maybe some kind of plan so that when you put your money in the banks, you don't lose it. But they're not going to be, Spain. I love the Spanish, that guy, Rajoy.
No, wait a minute. I'm gonna interrupt you because I don't have a big crew. You don't have a huge crew. We're lean and mean. But I could go back 5 years ago when I first started having you on, or I guess it's about 6 now, time flies. Or I could go back and get Robert 6, 7 years ago, or Chapman 10 years ago. I could go back. But I remember you 3 years ago, 4 years ago, saying, you watch, it's going to spread to Europe. It's going to start with the pigs. It's going to go through Greece, and then into Spain, and then Portugal, and right down the line, it has been exactly as you guys have said. And each time, here are the mainstream media people who never get it right on purpose because they're lying. Here are you guys out there that are doing the real research, and you're explaining they're going to get another bailout, that won't fix it. Another bailout, that won't fix it. I mean, they don't even wait a week now till demanding a new bailout to the bankers. So break down. You predicted exactly what's happening so far, and now tell us what's coming next in Europe, how you see this shaking out.
Well, again, let's go back also. The euro's only online, 10 years? And it can't hold it together in 10 years. It's only 10 years old, and it came in at the height of globalization. It can't make it through bad times. So, go back to Spain. What did they say 3 weeks ago? We're going to need $19 billion. We'll bail out all the banks.
Then $100 billion.
Now it's $100 billion. It's 100 billion euros, 125 billion.
And now they're asking for 300 billion more. It's like every day it becomes a new number.
Exactly. And that's only Spain. And then there's Italy. Italy's debt's much bigger than Spain's, more than 2.5 times. They can't get out of it. There's no way out. So what they're going to do, again, NATO, we're talking about NATO. What's with this NATO baloney? NATO is there. They put it in place to protect us from them Soviet unions. Remember that one? NATO wasn't supposed to go into Libya. NATO's not supposed to go into Syria. This is the World Criminal Organization that's put together a global army. And they're going to get our mind off this by taking us to more war. They cannot solve the European debt crisis. And like you said, where's the money going? It's going to the banks. Who made up this baloney up that we have to save the money changers? Who made this up that if the banks fail, we all die? Hey, guess what? I can't go out of business. I want a bailout. If people can't get the Trends Journal, the whole world will go to crap. I mean, it's the same thing. And and look at this one. What was the average increase for these losers, these Jamie Dimons, these guys in Citigroup and all the rest? They got 12% on average bonuses, pay raises for bringing their companies
that's another point.
And the country down.
That's another point. Not defending Communist China. They have their own problems and they're in bed with the globalists. But you and others have pointed out when they put melamine in kids' milk, they just execute them, the corporate leaders. I noticed they're taking all the fancy cars away from government bureaucrats because China is having budgetary cuts. But here, it's more caviar, more jets, more $500 a night for even Austin city officials when they go to New York to sell us out. I mean, it is amazing how, as Rome burns, they are literally fiddling.
Again, we have to understand who the they are. The they, as I've said over and over again, are the same people we couldn't stand in high school and college. The ones that wanted to be the class presidents and head of the student councils. The suck-ups, the brown-nosers, the glad-handers, the insincere. That's who they are. They follow their career path, and they're destroying us, and people applaud them. They wait online to see them. They close down entire cities, airspace, stop the trains when they come into town, and they're bringing the entire global situation to another world war, and we're letting them do it. Oh, you know that woman on the bus, the school bus monitor, who the kids, ridiculed, and she's crying, and she gets, a couple of $100,000. If that was my mother or my Aunt Zizzy, may their souls rest in peace, any of them, if those kids started giving them any bit of crap, they would have laid these kids out. Who are you talking to? That's what would have happened in the old days. But the people in this country have become nothing more than a bunch of pansies.
Well, by the way, you always talk about dressing nice, and I've been so busy. I've been sold on an idea that I've got to respect myself even more because I kind of saw it as dressing fancy puts other people down, but now I understand it's the opposite. Like the old timers, they always tried to dress really nice, so I've got to go out and get some new suits and stuff because my others are worn out or too big now because I've lost some weight. But the point is, I do intend to try to really start dressing a lot nicer, and my wife always does it, but with my children as well, because A, we've got to separate ourselves from people that don't care, because even poor people a long time ago tried to dress nice, and B, point out, hey, we're important, we've got manners, because society is completely degenerating. I mean, you go to the store now, people's pants are hanging down, they're slobs everywhere, society's degenerating, and the system counts on us not having any respect for ourselves, because even when I was in school, 25, 30 years ago, when it was things like middle school and elementary school, I was dressed with a button-up shirt and jeans, and my shoes were clean, and I wasn't fancy, and everybody was so much more respectful, and we weren't perfect, mind you, but nowadays, they've purposefully taken all discipline out of parents, out of people in the neighborhood, out of anybody, so that now everybody's a bunch of mindless, crazy animals. I mean, I'm really worried about society because you've got one group, that's getting into dressing better, having better food, being more cultured, getting back to basics, and then you've got others who are just headlong turning into animals.
You got it. And that's the ones we have to watch out for because, just to make the point, people, I'm not talking about going out and buying. You could buy very nice clothes at a very affordable price. You go to Goodwill, Salvation Army, people that work with me, friends I have, they all do it.
No, the point is people don't care anymore about looking nice. They don't care.
That's exactly it. The other thing is, it doesn't cost anything to feel good. You make yourself feel better. I get emails all the time, people saying thank you for bringing this up. Because here's my, every day I meditate, or else I'd go out of my mind, all the crap I have to read and analyze it. And there's 5 things I say every day. Courage, dignity, respect, integrity, and passion. When you have those 5 elements, you don't take anybody's crap. And you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that's what we've lost to me in this country. We've lost our dignity. We've lost our courage. Again, that woman crying, you're 68 years old. You're only 3 years older than me. As I said, if that was my mother or aunts, they wouldn't take that crap from little kids. They've lost their integrity. They've lost their passion. And one other thing, you mentioned about being poor and looking well. Anybody could do it. Doesn't cost anything. Go on the internet, look up the Great Depression. Look at the way the people dressed. Look at the way they dressed. Even if they were poor, they looked respectable. It's self-respect. And again, that's what the intellectual revolution that we're waging is. One of the heart and the mind. It's about the individual rising up to greater heights. It's as simple as that. Because when you do, you don't take anybody else's crap. You don't give it, and you don't take it. Could you imagine if Romney, Obama, Santorum, Gingrich, any of these clowns, McCain, they started coming in and laying down their line on us and saying, this is what you have to believe, and this is what you have to do. They said, listen, Jack, take it easy, man. Don't save your lines for somebody else. Plays well with the kiddies on The View, but it doesn't play so well here. So to me, it goes back to self-respect, dignity, courage, integrity, and passion.
Well, that's another point. We've gone out before and hung up flyers just to show people the power of grassroots, defiling the dictator Obama as he launches wars, as he engages in Fast and Furious, as he does all this stuff outside the Constitution. And people can't believe we have the courage to go hang up signs. Or to protest Bilderberg. They say this must be fake. And I think, my God, they think I'm a hero because I would go hang a sign up or go protest a world leader. That is really pathetic compared to, I'll use the example, when my grandfather was flying, Liberators and B-17s over Europe, at the first of the war, half the people died flying their 22 missions. But my grandfather survived. And I think of the benchmark of courage. Somebody like my grandfather who would fly over Europe up against the Germans and had a lot of his buddies die and would never talk about it, by the way. He would never talk about what he did, versus people today who think it's heroic to go bullhorn some limousine of globalists going into a meeting. And it's like, I'm not a hero. In fact, I should do more. I just can't believe the benchmark in taking action is so incredibly low. People are literally spectators, Gerald.
Yes, they are. And then there's the other element that we really have to be concerned about. What's one of the headlines today about the increase of violent crime in Chicago, for example?
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, so now what we have is, as society, and I'm not making these numbers up, the gap between the rich and the poor is the widest in the United States and any of the industrialized nations. What did people lose? 40% of their net income since the recession began.
Oh, wait.
So now you look at a whole section of society. Kids, their mothers, whacked out on crack. They don't know who their father is. They're whacked out on meth or whatever else. They have no education, no skills, and there are tens of millions of them. You think it's going to be a problem? And you know what the answer is going to be from the morons? We got to crack down on crime, I tell you. Oh, yeah, right. I got it. Let's start another war. You think Detroit looks bad? Let's not even give them a penny. No money for education. By the way, the education system stinks. But we need to educate those who need it the most. Not the spoiled kids, to me, the kids that need it the most. So here's one of the things that I'm going to be working more and more on. I've realized that society goes into a direction because of role models. Whether it's, look, let's look like a moron. It's a role model. Whether it's a Kardashian, whether it's a Justin Bieber, whether it's a Britney Spears, whether it's 50 cents, no sense, whatever it might be.
Well, no, the social engineers know what they're doing. They're giving us these punk, disheveled, pathetically ignorant role models, so we'll be like that, so we're easy to control.
You got it. So one of the directions that we're moving in with the Trends Journal and the Trends Research Institute is to work to develop new role models. That's where it has to change. And to me, it has to change through entertainment in one of the major factors. Because you know that your audience, my audience, the people that we know, we're only we're maybe 10% of society. The other people are Jersey shored out. Even that I know a name like Snooki is disgusting. So it has to come also from other avenues. So as we're launching the Second American Revolution, that's one of the avenues that we're going to be launching it through, entertainment.
Very exciting. Gerald, I want to get back into Europe and what's happening over there and also get your forecast on the militarization of police. In fact, let's just do that now, and then I have this clip off of Kudlow where they're admitting that foreign bankers have dominated and hijacked America, and then the guest go down the line and agree, yes, we absolutely are slaves to international bankers, but then, it's kind of a good thing as the Federal Reserve knows best. So it's just really off the charts to see it becoming this transparent. But first, you mentioned the degeneration of society. They were getting ready for this derivatives collapse over a decade ago.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they understood the Ponzi scheme. They knew where it was going. The issue is they may have even overdone it in their fraud. And so that's, I think, where the debate lies. But now in St. Louis, Missouri, and everywhere, and I've talked to police, but also the head of the Army, the Secretary of the Army, actually, just 2 weeks ago in the CFR wrote that, yes, they're going to have 4,000 armed troops, a brigade, regular Army or Marines in every major city, and they're going to run checkpoints. And then suddenly, they're rolling around, and the news is like, people like it. It fights crime. It's the rollout of martial law beginning, and it's in the big black neighborhoods everywhere. So you ship the drugs in, you dumb the people down, you screw up the education, you send everybody to jail so they come back, and that's the only education they got is from a prison. It is what it is. But they're going to sell the entire police state, and I said this a decade ago, and here it is happening, first off of the imploding inner cities, predominantly around black folks. But then as the rest of society implodes, it's going to happen to everybody. But then they sell people, that's just the black neighborhood. I'm getting calls and emails, and I see comments on my videos online saying, Alex, yeah, they're getting ready for martial law because of, what's happening in Chicago, these gangbangers. Well, why did MTV and this culture magnify this? My point is that they're going to do it in these areas and then expand it out everywhere else. And here it is. Martial law is being quietly put in place. That's my analysis. What's your take?
Oh, it's one of our top trends for 2012. We're on the same page. We said as the economy continues to worsen, they're going to continue to take more of our rights away. It began, we saw it coming. You reported on it heavily, so did I, about the National Defense Authorization Act, signed by El Presidente of Los Estados Unidos. I say that because we become a banana republic on New Year's Eve when no one was watching. And what did that allow it to do? Among other things, it repealed the Posse Comitatus Act of what, 1878?
Yep.
Which allows the military to perform police duties. Wonderful. Oh, and what's that new executive order that El Presidente signed in March that allows him to declare martial law at, quote, a potential threat? Yeah. No, it's all in place. And so what's happening is that America's turned into a fascist state. It's right in front of us. And you pointed it out well. They put these stupid people on the air, the prostitutes. Well, I'm really glad that the military's here because now, you know, they could stop the crime. They put one after another on, and the same thing happened in New York last week when the guy forgot to plug in the metal detector at JFK, and they brought the airplanes back off the tarmac. And somebody from San Diego said, well, better safe than sorry. When was the last time an airplane blew up?
No, they're selling this idea that if there aren't perfect checkpoints and troops, Al-Qaeda's going to get you. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda publicly works for them.
You said it. You gave the details. They're in Libya. They're in Syria. Began in Afghanistan. Exactly. I'm telling you, it comes down to something very simple, and people don't want to recognize it. We have sociopaths and psychopaths destroying our lives. It's no more than that. And people are tolerating it. They don't know better than we do. And here, just for the track record, everything they touch, they turn to crap. You want to start a war? Could you ever win one? Oh, you're going to bail out and spend trillions of dollars to help your buddies at the bank? Hey, it didn't work. Oh, Obama, you said that by 2010, that's right, 2010, the unemployment rate would be down to 7%. Gee, it's over 8%. What went wrong? One thing they do, Bush going into
And those
Iraq,
are all cooked numbers. Let me ask you this question, and then I want to get to this world government clip from Kudlow and CNBC, legends in their own minds, as they almost have no audience now. That's another issue. But what do you see happening long term? Because history shows the attempts to start war with Russia isn't going to go well. The attempts to set up this police state isn't going to go well, because as the troops go bankrupt, as their money won't take care of their wives and kids back home, they're waking up. As they're told to serve 5, 6, 7 tours, it's not working. I mean, I don't see this working for the white shoe boys, and I already see the white shoe boys, as you described them, buying armored redoubts in the Caribbean and Europe and the Cook Islands and Australia. So I already see a lot of them leaving. So that doesn't bode well for their structure if they're already, getting a get-out-of-town plan.
Well, they had the wherewithal to do whatever they want at any time, so they could stay or leave. They're just making, contingency plans. It's coming down. The whole thing is collapsing. As you pointed out, the troops in St. Louis and everywhere else they're going to be putting them, all the checkpoints we have now, the new legislation that I've seen you reporting on, the House legislation that allows the TSA now to be everywhere, that they're going to be pushing through. So they're putting everything into place. You make the point about, will the troops follow orders? I recently received an email from a soldier from the former Czechoslovakia saying how they refused to obey orders. They were young guys, and they wanted them put down riots and rebellions, and they wouldn't do it. Will the American soldiers and police do the same thing here? Will they fire on their brothers? From what I see now, I'm afraid they will, because I see what they do with the Occupy movements. I see how they bash people to pieces, as we've seen the clips. The police, they kill that homeless guy in California. So I'm afraid that the nation has degenerated so much morally that they will fight against us. And I'm not saying that in anything that's so far out to think. I mean, after all, here we are today, you and I talking to each other. How many American soldiers got killed in Afghanistan today? How many Americans were killed, other people in Afghanistan today? How many drone strikes killed innocent people today or this week? So as long as we had, and the criminality. How many heads rolled on Wall Street from all the money being stolen from us? Who are these? I love this term. They call them overzealous prosecutors who beat up the people like us. the smaller people on the level. But where are these overzealous prosecutors prosecuting the real criminals? So I don't see it happening, Alex, because it's immorality at every level. You don't, as I said, you haven't seen one head roll on Wall Street. And what do they do? Roger Clemens. How much money did they spend going after this guy?
$3 million instead of going after the head of MF Global.
Exactly. So that's where I see it going. But again, it goes back to we the people. When enough people, I've said this before, there's this wonderful Hindu saying, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Anybody that's really practiced at anything or got really good at it knows they had a great teacher in their lives. The same thing to me holds true for the people. When the people are ready, the leader will appear. But to me, the people are not ready emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I was out the other night down here at the waterfront in Kingston, and I sat outside and I was having my dinner, and I'm watching the people go by. It's like the whales got beached. And well, how could people go out in public like this? No one was dressed. People eating ice cream cones, you know, slovenly dressed, no manners. What has happened to the dignity of this country? I have a picture hanging on the wall. It's in one of my books, what Zizzy gave Honey Boy, of my parents, may they rest in peace. Italian immigrants, 1934, the height of the Depression. My father worked in a radio factory. My Uncle Frankie and Uncle Mario worked in fish stores. My Uncle Al was a butcher. They were all working people at these jobs. Every one of them is dressed and looking dignified. What happened? And you know what happened? It's very simple. We've been chained and mauled. Because my Uncle Al, he had his own butcher's shop. My Uncle Frankie and Uncle Mario, they had their own fish stores. Now you got to work for Walmarts. You got to work for Apple, making $62.50 a week. You have to work for Staples. There used to be stationery stores. There used to be grocery stores. There used to be hardware stores. That's right, little boys and girls. Not everything was chained and mauled. They've given everything to the rich. They've given everything to the Buffetts. They've been gated, they've been chained, and they've been mauled. And as long as it keeps going in this direction, you're going to keep working for the man. You will never have a career. Waste your money on college. Go to work for one of the big guys so they can enslave you for the rest of your life. That's what's happened to America. We used to have neighborhoods. We used to have entrepreneurs. It wasn't gobbled up by the greedy Tysons, the fat Cargills, the bloated Buffetts. How many more billions do you need? How many more billions do you need, Warren? Stop telling people to drink Coke. It's crap. It's poison. They're poisoning our minds, our bodies, and they've robbed our spirit. So as long as we keep going in this direction, you know my motto, break the chains. Olive Garden's not Italian food. Pizza Hut isn't pizza. Oh, I loved it. They had the clown out there. The prostitutes rolled out the McDonald's clown. They're chef. They're chef. There's no such thing as a chef at McDonald's. He said none of the food is unhealthy, and they let him get away with it.
Oh, you're right, but there's two different things happening. Either people are getting more in a zombified, gray, blobular fashion, just little automatons that are programmable, or they're awakening, and those two things are happening. But I want to play you this clip, because before we went on air here, I asked if you'd seen this. You said you'd read the transcript. This is from CNBC a few days ago. And it goes on for like 4.5 minutes where each guest agrees, yes, we're absolutely slaves. But then they go on, if you watch the full clip that's at Infowars.com, to say, but it's good that we're slaves because the Federal Reserve knows best. And I've seen this in The Economist. I've seen it in the Financial Times. All of them are like, yeah, technocrats run things now. You know, they appoint the leaders now, but they know best. So I thought I'd play this clip and ask you, why are they getting this naked? Because I've seen hundreds of articles the last few months, more than 30 in the last week, in prestigious so-called publications, finally not apologizing and saying, okay, Alex, you were right, world government run by megabanks. No, the answer is megabanks, you are their slave. They actually say, we are slaves, quote, we are absolutely slaves to the banks. And they've conquered us, and that's a good thing, Gerald. Here it is from CNBC.
Now, the question is, do we all work for central bankers? That's what I want to address to our guest tonight. Is this global governance at last? Is it one world, the central bankers in charge? Jim Iorio, aren't we all just living and dying for what the central banks do? Aren't we all just counting on the fact that there's a Bernanke put and that we won't go any lower than, say, 5% down from here?
Of course we are, because if we look at the economic data, there's nothing to get excited about in that. We are absolutely slaves to central banks, because and we'd love to be slaves of the economy, but the economic numbers continue to do nothing but trend low.
Yeah, and listen to what the Fed did this weekend. I think they really screwed up here. They said that we're going to do this Operation Twist through the end of the year. In other words, they're going to create uncertainty about what happens after Operation Twist, right at the same time that the fiscal cliff kicks in. Do we really want all
That's enough. And that's one guy that did criticize them. The others were saying, oh, don't blame the Fed. We need to be their slaves. Since when have we gotten to the point where Congress has told the UN and NATO run our military to their face, and that we're slaves to foreign banks? How do we ever get there, Gerald?
Again, it was a takeover. They had laws in place, Alex. It was called the Robinson-Patman Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act, the Clayton Act. All of these acts were put in so the robber barons wouldn't steal everything from us. They were all put in place so America could be the greatest country in the world. They were all put in place why people all over the world wanted to come here to begin their beginning, to live their life and to create their dream. It's all been taken away from us. We've been Walmarted, we've been Targeted, we've been McDonald's and Burger King. Everything is controlled by Home Goods, by Home Depot, by Lowe's, by a few people. They used to be... People are too young. I was thinking about this, talking to the younger people on my staff. I said, you know, you guys don't remember the time when there were hardware stores everywhere. Right down the block over here, there was a stationery store. Right over there used to be a butcher. Right over there used to be not a chain of dry cleaners, but a dry cleaner.
Well, I was about to say, though, I remember growing up when the big box stores were just coming in, but I remember spending summers working on the farm and the ranch, and my grandma would take me down to the little town, but there were like 8 little dry goods stores, and she could go in and look at belts and hats and gear, and it was different prices and different qualities. There was more choices on that little country road than there are today at even a sporting goods store or a giant Sheplers or something. The truth is, there was more choices back then. In a small town, you'd have 5 butchers right there, and people would learn who was the best, who had the best this, the best that. It gave all these little choices. You'd have... Go ahead.
No, you got it. It gave them all the little choices, and it gave them an income. It gave them the ability to reach their dream. It gave them an ability to live a solid middle-class life, or even an upper-middle-class life. You know, John Anthony West, who I work with, his parents had a clothing store, women's clothing store in White Plains, New York. He lived an upper-middle-class life. Now everything is Macy's. Everything has been taken over. I was telling you about my family. This is the picture on the wall. Look at the way these people are dressed. This is 1934. Look at the way they look. They worked in vegetable stores. They worked in fish stores, and they were butchers. They worked in the manufacturing sector. Remember that one? Alex, you don't need to be a genius to figure out what happened. We were sold out. We were sold out by Clinton. We were sold out by Reagan. We were sold out by Nixon. We were sold out by Carter. We were sold out by Bush. And we're being sold out by Obama. Every one of these presidents after Eisenhower began to sell our nation out. Nixon taking us off the gold
And
standard.
Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex taking over. And now today, you turn on any ball game, it's nothing but troop worship, but it's not even worship of the troops. It's worship of them taking over. It's like living in a fascistic science fiction movie.
It is. Look, go back to our trend alert following when Henry Paulson, the former CEO of the Goldman Sachs gang, anointed U.S. Treasury Secretary under George W. Bush, began the whole TARP baloney. We had to bail out the banks. We sent out a trend alert. Washington has hijacked Wall Street. It's the same thing. It's a takeover. Fascism, by definition, is the merger of state and corporate powers. They use the military as enforcers for the political and financial crime bosses. That's all it is.
And as classic tyranny comes to us, we're supposed to just fall down and worship the troops aiming machine guns at us. It's unbelievable. Gerald Celente, we're going to put your website up on screen there for people to visit it. People can subscribe there, also sign up for the Trends Alerts. They can get your books as well. Tell us about your books. Tell us about the Trends Journal. Tell us about the work you're doing. I know there's a lot of fake websites out there claiming to be you. There's two URLs that really are you, so make sure and make that note for everybody. And then in 5 minutes, because I've been asking the question, other points that you think are important for people to know.
Well, first of all, the Trends Journal, I just want to mention a couple of things about it. Our staff is unparalleled. There's not a group of trend forecasters or free thinkers writing in trends than we have, whether it's Nomi Prinz, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, of course, John Anthony West, who, by the way, is famous for his work on the mystery of the Sphinx. It was a major NBC special with Charlton Heston narrating it a couple of years ago, proving that the Sphinx predates the Sahara Desert because of the watering, which brings it back to about 10,000 BC, not 2,500 BC. The importance of that is that civilization's a lot different than the way they're telling us.
Yeah, the history we've been told is not accurate.
Yeah. And then we have also Anthony Freda, our illustrator, nationally award-winning illustrator, Ben Davis, one of the top science writers in the world. So it's really, you're going to find trend information and history before it happens like you won't find anywhere else. And as you well know, we're preparing people for what's ahead. So not only are we telling the history before it happens, we're giving you the opportunities of how to prepare and plan for what's ahead. And what's ahead is this. We're already in the first great war of the 21st century. Let's just add them up, Alex. Bahrain. Oh, they don't talk about that because the Fifth Fleet's there. It's riots virtually every day. Yemen. We're sending Predator drones in there as well. Saudi Arabia has actually invaded Bahrain, but they just call them protectorate troops. Then we're going into Syria. You see what's going on over there. A new government is moving into Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood. Another Muslim government going into Morocco. Tunisia, the same thing. Riots, uprisings, and radicalization. And I'm not saying this is an anti-Muslim. That's the furthest thing from it. One of my good friends and partners in other businesses is Muslim. I'm not like that. What I'm saying is, and again, I wrote this back in Trends 2000 in 1995 and the Trends Journal in 1993, Crusades 2000. They're radicalizing the Muslim people because of American foreign policy. So we keep moving around the globe. Greece, wonderful situation there. Severe depression, only getting worse, plus put on top of that huge immigration problems. People that came in from Afghanistan, Iraq, all of those areas trying to escape the turmoil, Libya, Africa, they can't get out. Serious problems in Greece. Oh, Spain, the indignados, the people that are indignant, 50% plus unemployment rate among the youth, 25% unemployment rate generally, much higher actually, and then, of course, a severe economic decline, a real estate bust. Oh, let's move over to Italy. Same thing. By the way, everybody now hear this. If you want to see a model that's made be successful, watch what's going on in Italy. There's a new movement, they call it the Five-Star Movement. It's being run by a satirist, a brilliant one, Beppe Grillo. And this movement is now the #3 party in Italy. And it may be a model for displacing the two corrupt parties that are running most countries. It ain't democracy, folks, that we have. It's communism with just two isms, or fascism, I should say. It ain't communism, it's fascism with two parties running it. That's another overthrow government. Then we go over to the UK. They're in trouble. They're trying to juice the economy. They can't do it. Go over to Brazil. Their economy is now tanking. They're dumping stimulus in. They can't do it. Pick up the news. They're cooking the books in China. They cannot fix the economy if Europe, the #1 importer of Chinese goods, America, the #2 importer, isn't importing. China's not making. Yes, there are a lot of rich people in China, about 400 million, doing well and getting by pretty good. But guess what? They have a population of 1.2 million people, and the rest of them aren't doing well at all. Riots are bubbling up. Then go over to Australia. Hey, Aussies, hey, Chileans, hey, Bolivians. If China, Indonesia, Vietnam, they're not making stuff, Brazil, you guys ain't exporting. The entire global economic system is in collapse. The world is already at wars. There are civil wars. There are regional wars, and there's going to be a world war. Hey, remember Iran? Getting closer to the breaking point. So that's where we're heading.
Absolutely. And now we're getting reports of British troops in the north of Syria. Turkey says they'll attack them anytime they want. We've got the Russians. Again, I'm not saying they're angels, but the point is they are not aggressing. The West, run by bankers, America doesn't exist for all intents and purposes, are running missiles and troops and revolutionaries up all into Russia's borders in the West, in the South, in the East. And Medvedev and Putin have said, we've rolled nukes into place. If you keep doing it, we're going to nuke you. I mean, I look back to the Cold War. The Russians didn't talk like that then. To have the Russians saying, if you try to destabilize us, we're going to nuke you. The State Department's trying to overthrow Putin right now. That's admitted. I mean, this is crazy. These bankers that make 40-to-1 bets with your money, like Don Corzine, they may end up causing World War III. These people are nuts.
Alex, the timeline is perfect. I've mentioned this before. The crash of 1929, the Great Depression, currency wars, trade wars, world war. That's all it's about. The panic of '08, the Great Depression, we're in it. Recession, depression, depends what country you go into. Currency wars, they're on. Look at the currencies. The rupee's crashing, the real. Yeah, I mean, the currencies are all in upheaval. Trade wars, they're heating up. And I just mentioned about all the world wars that are starting to heat up. They're taking us to war. The psychopaths do it all the time. It's the money changers. Again, just go back to the beginning. I mean, you talk about Christ. When does the Prince of Peace become violent? Not angry, violent. To pick up a whip and drive the money changers out of the temple because they were the most evil people on the planet. They're called bankers today. When I was a kid in the Bronx, we called them loan sharks. No difference. So it's the money changers that are destroying civilization. They did it during Christ's time, and they're doing it now during our time. You played the clip, and I love these little weenies on CNBC. I don't think there's a pair of cojones if you put all those guys together, bowing down, scraping up, and telling them how wonderful the bankers are. What a disgrace. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. No dignity, no respect, certainly no courage, got no passion, and no integrity. Wonder why we're in trouble?
A bunch of yes men and a bunch of soft people like Hillary, because, you know, it's been the Pentagon. It's been the last 3 Joint Chiefs of Staff chairmen have said no to the Iran war. Now they got Dempsey in there, who reportedly, is not too smart and is ready to do whatever he's told. And are we really going to let a bunch of crazy loan shark bankers start a war with the Russians? Because I've talked to a lot of historians, a lot of analysts. They said the Russians would not be saying that if they weren't getting ready to do it. And so, I mean, they're threatening them with nuclear war, and the bankers are like, sure, let's have it.
Well, I don't think we're going to see nuclear war, but let's not forget the Russians, you know. I mean, you go back to Napoleon, you know, to Hitler. I mean, nobody beats the Russians. You know, they'll go to the last person, but then they're not going to be the last one. So Russia is not going to tolerate, I believe, more Western imperialism and overreach. They learned what happened with Libya when they agreed to allow NATO to run that humanitarian mission, and I don't believe it's going to happen again.
You mean the thousands of airstrikes and ethnic cleansing of the blacks, but Obama has a Peace Prize, though. Well,
again, you know, look at the people in charge. This is high school. That's all it is. And the press are no more than the people that used to be, you know, used to write the school newspaper. It's all show. It's red carpets. It's theater. It's the presidential reality show. That's all this is.
Right. Well, Gerald, that was an amazing interview. Thank you for giving us so much time, and people can find out more. I mean, I know there's 2 URLs that go to your site. What's the best one?
Trends Journal, trendsjournal.com, trendsjournal.com, or trendsresearch.com.
And those are the only official Gerald Celente sites?
Those are it.
All right. Final question. When do the dominoes really hit us here? I mean, I know we're already in a recession, depression. It's bad, but, I mean, will we get to a Greece-like level?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's collapsing. Our level of debt is comparable to theirs. They're not going to get out of it. The only thing they can do different here is print money to keep the Ponzi scheme going. But other than that, no, it's collapsing. It's collapsing. Look at the numbers. They can't create jobs. All of these kids that are getting out of college with university degrees in worthlessness and mountains of debt. Here's how the whole game changes, Alex. People used to get out of college, used to get jobs, used to buy houses. Now they get out of college, they have debt that they could have bought a house with, and they don't have a job. They're not going to get out of it. It's only going to get worse.
Gerald Celente, well said. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Hopefully we can have an awakening and reverse this before it's too late.
And thank you for all you're doing and helping to awake everyone.
Well, if we don't turn things around, we have no future. I've got children, and I just, you know, what I'm worried about is when the zombies finally wake up and realize how much trouble they're in, I don't know what they're going to do.
They won't do anything. They'll freeze. I tell you this story when I was in the earthquake in Chile. And I'm on the 14th floor. It's the worst earthquake Chile had in 100 years. I was the first guy down, 14 flights of stairs. Everybody froze. How about the Concordia, that Italian ship? They're waiting for the captain to give orders as the thing is going under. What happened with the World Trade Center? The fire in the North Tower is under control. Go back to your offices. Look at the front cover of the Trends Journal. All aboard. Next train to Auschwitz. Kiss those calories goodbye. Take care, Alex. I got to run now. I got a new call coming in.
All right. God bless and take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, folks. Hour-long interview with Gerald. I could see him looking over. I could tell he was getting a call coming in. Wow, that's a way to end the show. And that is what happens. People are living in absolute and total, complete la-la land. And then they call us conspiracy theorists. It's like that libertarian guy we talked about earlier. And he's going around giving speeches, not against the New World Order, not against the global government, not against the admission that we've been hijacked by foreign banks and they're calling it authoritarian world government in the Financial Times of London and saying that's good. No, instead of getting a cigar and, hey, Alex, you were right. Hey, man, if the New World Order was real, here's a cigar, buddy. Hey, man, thank you for warning. We've got to keep these conspiracy theorists that talk about world government out of our midst. We don't want to talk bad about the bankers. Again, this is the crazy level that we've reached as a society. Probably 30% of people in the United States are somewhat awake now. I have tried to target the police and military because they're key in all this. I'd say half the cops are awake, something like 60, 70% of the troops are awake. We have numbers that back a lot of that up. Ron Paul getting 73% or so. It varied month to month of all the military donations for all the Republican and Obama as well. But when they get them in the peer pressure, who knows what's going to happen? All I know is these bankers are going to end up killing us all if we don't stop them. We're going to go to break, and we're going to come back with the exclusive premiere, because we only aired large parts of it on the radio today, but this is it, commercial-free when we come back. The Billy Corgan interview, 40-something minutes long, that we did over the weekend, and we're working hard. We came in here, I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you, some of our crew came in here like Marcos Morales on Saturday, because that's the only time Billy could do the interview before he left to South America for tour. His new album came out this week, was this Saturday. We came in, we did it, he edited it Sunday and Monday. Here it is with all the video and everything added. I'm just telling you, we are busting our butt to bring you InfoWars Nightly News, and I know you're busting your butt with the $5.95 a month to have PrisonPlanet.tv memberships. There's a 15-day free trial running. One membership is really 6 memberships. With the same username and passcode, 6 people can be logged onto your account if you share it with people that you trust. Or create a new passcode. I mean, don't give them the passcode to your bank account. It's the same thing to the website. Word of the wise is sufficient on that, but people actually sent me emails. Well, wait, you're saying share our passcode, they could break it? Well, you can't break in if it's just your username and passcode. That doesn't get them into the rest of your info. You know, that's all separate. But the point is that it's really 6 memberships for the price of 1, and it's what funds this studio, the crew, the people, the everything that's going on here. So jam-packed marathon transmission tonight. It's going to be 2.5 hours of InfoWars nightly news or so. And that's why when the crew knows I'm doing the nightly news, look out here, because Aaron Dykes is doing it tomorrow night. But I taped a question and answer with Alex. It's like 25 minutes long that we're going to air tomorrow night for viewers of and readers and users of planetinfowars.com. And by the way, use that site now to get organized, folks. It's your social network on resistance and activism, preparedness, outdoors, guns, health, video, business. That's an important fight against the New World Order, getting together, dating, breeding prodigiously in the mineshaft gap. Okay, now I'm quoting Dr. Strangelove. Economics, entertainment. Gotta have some fun, you know, makes Jack a dull boy. Actually, all work and no play makes me insane. Gibbering, obnoxious creature. All right, hour-long interview with Celente, Billy Corgan, bombshell interview. We're going to upload this to YouTube soon, and I don't even know what to say or call it. I mean, it was just Billy Corgan on fire. Billy Corgan, exposes the Matrix. Billy Corgan, escapes the Matrix. What do you call it? Billy Corgan down the rabbit hole? Billy Corgan, a voice in the rockstar wilderness. Billy Corgan battles satanic Easter bunnies from Planet 10. Billy Corgan fights what was that poem my mother would read me? The Jabberwocky. Hey, we didn't have a daily quote today, did we? We do have one? Okay, well, let's do it right now. Daily quote. But first, the extravaganza continues. Will you guys pull up for me the Jabberwocky poem? I forget who wrote that. It's some famous guy. The Jabberwocky burbled as it went. That's all I know. And floofled, snoofled, goofled.
Was it Lewis Carroll?
Lewis Carroll, yeah, I think so. Yeah, the Jabberwocky. There you go. Let's pull that up here. There it is. Thank you. Please, will you put that in the middle for me? From Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, 1872. 'Twas brilling and slithery toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogroves, and mome raves outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwocky, my son, the jaws that bite, the jaws that catch. They're talking about a TSA worker. Beware the jub bird, and shun the frumptuous bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while and thought. And as if Uferish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tungly wood and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And thou hast slain the Jabberwocky. Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, Callooh Callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brilling and with slithy toves, did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All whimsy were the borogroves, and the mome wraith outgrabe. Now that is news, ladies and gentlemen. All right, now for a Jabberwocky quote from George Herbert Walker Bush. The world can therefore seize, let me say it in his voice, the world can therefore seize the opportunity to fulfill the long-held promises of a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common depression that we cause, to fight Al-Qaeda we created, to achieve the universal aspirations of all mankind, to be exterminated by a world government. I'm sorry, what? Oh, yeah, there he is holding hands with his date for the evening. Anyway.